are you aware that when you are connected to your inner being, you are connected to the inner being of everybody that you're making the decision with? And I was like, oh my God, no, I didn't really think about that. But like, and it was like,
Oh,
it's
wow.
included. Your desire for their well being is included when you are connected to you. Like, it's not just about you, it's about you. And then when you're in that loop, it loops into all of them and you're receiving on behalf of all of them. And so you don't need to worry about their in the moment emotion about your good feeling and decision. You can know that this is of value for everyone and that they may or may not slurp up with their own inner being. But making a decision based off of like putting out the fires or whatever, like you're never going to feel good chasing the fires to get this all feeling good to like make a decision.
Well, right there, that can help cure codependency. Welcome to the Delicious Alignment Podcast, high vibing conversations with me, your host, Rhonda Ryder. We cover all topics related to living an amazing, fun-filled life through becoming a master of your emotions and your vibrational frequency. Mostly, this show is about remembering who you really are. We've got a great episode for you today with Liz Hayes. I'll tell you more about Liz in a moment, but first, I want to let you know that we are going on hiatus for the rest of the year and will return on Thursday, January 4th, 2024, with a brand new season of the Delicious Alignment Podcast. We've got exciting guests already lined up and can't wait to share them with you. In the meantime, feel free to catch up on seasons 1 and 2. The first season is mostly about how to love your body and make peace with food. The second season includes a series on abundance, another series with people who have asked Abraham Hicks questions during a live workshop, as well as episodes exploring spiritual expansion in a yummy and delicious high-vibing way, because it's all about the fun. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for your continued support of this show. It is a passion of mine, and I must admit, the experience has been quite a journey of expansion and growth for me personally. I am clearly being guided every step of the way, as we all are, and continue to follow the energy. I know that everything is working out for me and that everything is working out for you too, and that everything is happening for us, not to us. I so enjoyed speaking with Liz Hayes and learning about her inner child work. Liz is also a mother of 5 beautiful souls and the founder and creator of the Sync Up Method, helping you master the inner communication between you and you. Basically, she guides you to live a magical life. I loved hearing about her work and was amazed to learn that last year was the first year she's worked outside of the home since she was 22 years old. This is incredible, especially given the fact that she followed her guidance and without even trying, without even measuring outcomes, and without any quote-unquote business or marketing strategies, at the end of 2022, she realized she brought in $1 million from her business. This is a perfect demonstration of everything we've been talking about on this show this year. It's all about tuning in and following your guidance. This is a profound conversation that you'll probably want to listen to more than once. And definitely stay till the end, where Liz delivers a spontaneous 10-minute inner child meditation / message for us. It's so powerful. Let's get started. Hello, Liz.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so overjoyed to be here with you and with your beautiful listeners.
Thank you. I am so excited to have you on the show. I've heard so many wonderful things about you, and of course, I know you a little bit. We did meet at the Wheel retreat. You were sitting on the couch And I said, I know you from somewhere, but I didn't figure it out until I really heard your voice. And then you said you live in Puerto Rico and Buffalo. That I was like, wait a minute, I remember that some lady on an Abraham video in the hot seat talking about she lives in Puerto Rico and Buffalo.
I love it.
And that's not the first time that's happened to you, I'm sure.
It is not. I think the Abraham community is such a ecosystem of its own. Well, which is so perfect, which is the whole theme
Yeah,
of what we're talking about, right? Like beyond the hot seat and sort of what happens leading up to being a hot seater and then being a hot seater and then what kind of comes from that. And so one of
exactly.
the things that does happen is that there is a bit of visibility or just people hearing you. I remember going to a cruise a bit after, and it was somebody from South Africa. And they were like, I came on the cruise and I was hopeful that you would be on here because I've heard your hot seats. And it was maybe the the first time that there was like a blown away kind of feeling of the connectedness of us all, of what we individually navigate as humans and what we collectively navigate as humans and the beauty of that discovery really.
I want to talk to you about your hot seats and whatever you want to say about that. I mean, we were talking in the pre-chat that you love the idea of talking about how you actually got in the hot seat. So whatever you want to share, how you got in the hot seat and the first time, your journey. Tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Yes. Okay, well, first of all, the book Ask and It's Given had fallen on my husband at Barnes and Noble. So the entrance to Abraham Hicks came through my husband. And it was kind of like on his bedside table, something he listened to and read on his own for a couple of years. And then there was a moment for me where I was asking some specific questions. One, we had like a beautiful friend of ours pass away sort of suddenly, but I had sort of sensed something. So it like gave me this questioning about death. And then also in my own work and own discovery, I was looking for a relatable language. I was doing a lot of energetics, like quantum field work, and I was like, it's so cool. I could close my eyes and manipulate things with my hands, but I'm wanting to have impact with
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
words.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait. Okay. I cannot skip over that. You close your eyes and manipulate things with your hands. Like,
Yes.
whoa. Like, actually, like move a cup from over here to over there or a paper clip or.
Not exactly like a physical object, more in the energetic field. So,
Okay.
like, being able to translate frequency in energetic field, certainly being able to, connect to things that are interesting to me, and then, of course, they appear in the environment, not so conscious in the way that you're describing of, not so Jedi in the way
Okay.
that you're describing,
Okay. Okay.
but a
Okay.
version of wizardry, like of
I
like
love it.
magic in this way. So I had been studying like matrix energetics and the work of like Donna Eden and Carolyn Miss, and I had an energy intuitive that I apprenticed with um locally here, an incredible healer named Susan Kohler. She had cured herself of like stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I apprenticed with her for years. In fact, she like attended my birth of my daughter Sylvia, who's my fourth birth, like at home on my third floor. So I was like like a wizard in my own way, and my husband's way was this Abraham book. He had one book, Ask and It's Given. It had an CD in the back. He listened to that CD. He only did that. We had zero awareness that Abraham Hicks was like active and alive and something you could participate in or like any of that. So I start to have like an inquiry more about death in a certain way in relationship to this experience that we had. And Steve says, Abraham talks a lot about death. Some of the answers to your questions might be in this. Like, maybe you want to have a listen. And I was like, totally. And then in the same week, like a friend had sent me a quote of like Abraham quotes of the day. So I sign up for like their quotes of the day. Then Steve and I have so at this time we have 4 children, and the youngest was kind of like old enough to be left. Like I was finished breastfeeding, and it was like, okay, they're gonna join the pack and we're gonna go on like an adventure. And he had business in San Francisco. And he was like, what if we fly into like LA and drive up the coast to San Francisco? Like we're East Coasters. So this was like, oh my God, like such a fun idea to go
Mm.
to the West Coast and do this. So sure enough, we do our plans, we book our flights, all the things. Then I get a quote of the day, and Abraham is presenting the day after we get to LA. So we go to a Long Beach workshop, and we have no idea that Abraham's even popular. So we get there like 30 minutes ahead, thinking we're early, and we're the last row of 1,000 people. And so Esther comes out and hooks up and begins talking. And I was like, oh my gosh, she is doing what I know to do energetically, but it only looks like she's talking. Like,
Mhm.
what the heck
Mhm.
is going on here? Like, what is going on here? And so began really what feels like my relationship with the work. So I have like a specific journey. So we know nothing of YouTube. We know of these 1 day workshops. So we go to the workshop. I get the workshop in a CD form, and I listen to it in my car. Like, we'll intentionally go for drives to listen, which I've heard that's common for other people. But I was very specific where I would just stay on one workshop. So I
Mhm.
would listen to that workshop until inside of me there was some sort of completion, and I felt summoned to go to another workshop. And then I would go to another workshop, and then I would just get that audio, and I would just listen to that workshop. So on this trip, we end up finding out we're pregnant with our 5th baby. So I don't remember how many workshops we did, but so that was like 20 15 probably. And then in the summer of 2017, Steve was at a 1 day workshop in Buffalo, and there was the Alaskan cruise coming up. It was like probably spring, and the Alaskan cruise was coming up in the summer. And anyways, he was like, "Do you want to go to Alaska?" And by this time, like the baby had finished breastfeeding, like he could join the pack. And so he and I went on that Alaskan cruise. And so I don't know how many workshops I went to up until that point, maybe 8 or so in the course of a couple of years. I don't remember exactly. They would just kind of like come and go, and I would listen to the audios. And so I started it was the time when like that baseball guy was really like going to a bunch of workshops. And so there would be this familiarity, and there would be a little bit of like knowing the person's story or whatever. And inside of me I could feel myself being prepared, curating for when
Mhm.
I would be a hot seater. I was like,
Yeah.
not even in me. I don't even think I had interest in being that then. I was very much in this like observation of like what the heck is going on here. And kind of an interesting thing, like whatever I had known before, I kind of put to the side and was like, I'm just gonna focus on this. And so that's important because there's like a cool thing that ends up happening. So I go in 2017 on the cruise. I am not a hot seater at that time, but I see on there that you could buy the master's program. And the master's program was every single workshop. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to every single workshop this year because I want to sense when the conversation changes. Like I was aware that they had this specific conversation, but then there would be like something that would happen and like the dial would change a little bit. And I was like, oh, I want to hear when this happens, like this crazy curiosity in this way. So I did that for a whole year. And then I also, inside of me, was like, I'm going to go on every cruise until like there are no more.
Oh, so
Like I
let
was
me just,
aware.
so you watched or listened to every like workshop they ever had that was ever
Yeah.
recorded?
No, no,
Oh,
no,
wait.
for a year from 2017 to 2018. Like
Okay.
like I was on the Alaskan cruise and then I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get this master's program." And so I got the master's program and so every workshop from that year I would get in
That's still a
my
lot. That's still a lot. But yeah, that's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible. Yeah.
so it was like, okay, I did that and then there was a cruise that fall we didn't go on because we were in a hurricane in Puerto Rico. But then that Caribbean 2018, then I like just went on every cruise. So my first hot seat ended up being in Asheville, and the hot seat was the one that you had heard because we were in the hurricane. So we had moved our family to Puerto Rico and then we had a hurricane. So then we had to come back to Buffalo. And then we were really in this space where we were like, are we done or are we going back? Like, well, like what is this? And my first hot seat was um understanding how to make a decision because
Hmm.
my kids had a lot of emotion about it. Like
Right.
some were excited, some were not excited, da 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 da. And then like as a parent, you're like, am I gonna ruin my kid by making this choice? And the most profound, I should re-listen to this hot seat, but it was like so profound where it was like, are you aware that you are in your vortex and that you are connected to your inner being when you are having these amazing ideas? And it's like, yes. And then it was like, are you aware that when you are connected to your inner being, you are connected to the inner being of everybody that you're making the decision with? And I was like, oh my God, no, I didn't really think about that. But like, and it was like,
Oh,
it's
wow.
included. Your desire for their well being is included when you are connected to you. Like, it's not just about you, it's about you. And then when you're in that loop, it loops into all of them and you're receiving on behalf of all of them. And so you don't need to worry about their in the moment emotion about your good feeling and decision, you can know that this is of value for everyone and that they may or may not slurp up with their own inner being. But making a decision based off of like putting out the fires or whatever, like you're never going to feel good chasing the fires to get this all feeling good to like make a decision.
Well, right there, that can help cure codependency.
Exactly. And it's like I'm a mother of 5 and like that we're a family of 7. There's always someone happy and always someone honorary, like right because we're in the movement of our own life and exactly and I remember them saying like you are pre-paving the fires. You are pre-paving their arguments, their discontent, their like all of these things from your nervousness of like sensing it. Like, here I am, this mom with a magical idea. And I'm like, okay, internally it feels amazing and magical. And now I'm out here and I'm like asking if it's okay if I have a magical idea. And it's like, what are you doing? Like you don't need to ask out here. Like you got the yes, the hell yes, head to toe yes internally. Just let that be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge. It was radical for me.
That is so huge. That really is because and I use the word codependent sometimes
Yeah,
because yeah, I mean,
great word.
right, coming from an alcoholic, my dad was alcoholic and just a lot of codependency going on and realizing that, oh my God, that's amazing to think of it that all of everyone
If
else
you're
is
looped in this way, then you're looped into their inner being
yes, their
also.
inner beings are also in cahoots with my inner being, and they're just orchestrating. It's like mind blown.
Yes. Yes, and like not taking the temperature of their emotions because their emotions are theirs to take the temperature of. They're not
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah, and if you're
So
being
that was
guided
a
as a
big
if you're
step.
being guided as a parent, excuse me, if you're being guided as a parent, just like, okay, well that may be all of our inner beings saying, "Hey, we want to do this."
That's a value to everybody that there's an
Yeah.
interest. I love that you use the word codependency a lot. It's really like entanglement, it's codependency is wildly an enmeshment of emotions, and it's dominantly taking that temperature that way, not internally, it's taking it externally. My work these days, very much, I am an expander of the inner relationship, and I describe things as the you and you between the inner child and the inner being. And so there's the inner being when the inner being is facing the inner child like this and taking the cues this way, and then the inner child turns to the outside world and starts sensing and taking cues that way. And really alignment is the ability to go from the outside to the inside, from the inside to the outside. It's this movement. It's our ability to look inward and our ability to look outward, and then the ability to look in and the ability to look out. And so when the inner child is sensing like, oh, dad is hot, or like my son is really gonna argue about this, I can sense it. And then I could turn towards the inner being and give that feedback towards the inner being and kind of ask for help in that way and let it go. And I'll slurp back up into my alignment and kind of know how to navigate around it. And so, to the other inner children listening here that have also grown up in all of us have codependent
Mm.
relationships. Like nobody's actually born, this is how to have a healthy relationship. Really, humanity doesn't know that. And so I just want to say your skill in sensing isn't wrong. And the thing that I love to teach people is really how to use their sensing system, how to use their alignment, not just how to get into alignment, but how to use their alignment. And often, if you were a brilliant sensor in this way, you are highly developed. Your sensing is highly developed, and it could really be a significant asset and doesn't need to be a problem like
Yeah.
that.
I
Like
would like to
to
get back to that. I want you to continue with your story, but if we could come circle back to that, I'd
Yeah,
like to hear more about that process of how you use the alignment, teach people
yes,
to use the
totally.
alignment. Yeah.
And I also had a dad who was an alcoholic, and I didn't know him until I was in my 20s. Like, didn't know him growing up. So
Yeah.
I also went did you go to Al-Anon?
I did for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really stick around. I wound up going to other 12-step programs like Overeaters Anonymous, and then adult children. I tried that of alcoholics, and then also we started Recoveries Anonymous in Long Island in New York, but I don't even know if it still exists or anything. But yeah, very familiar with 12 steps.
Yeah, totally. I went to, yeah. Anyways, that's like a whole nother
That's a whole
time
nother
in
show.
my
Yeah.
life. Yeah, for sure. But that was part of my journey too. So, anyways, I
Yeah.
became a hot seater in Asheville, and I remember my friend Turk. Has Turk been on your podcast?
No, maybe you could hook me
He
up.
should. Yes, Turk needs to be on here. It was so fun. I recently saw him in Amsterdam, and he was like, "Oh my god, I remembered your first hot seat because the rest is history." So anyways, then then a year later on that Alaskan cruise, 2018, so remember 2017, I was like, "I'm gonna follow this for a year." 2018 Alaska cruise was my first cruise hot seating, and then I hot seated every cruise since then, um, except one.
I love how hot seated is now a verb. That is so cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So that became my thing. And I have a wild curiosity in life and a huge inner world and inner relationship. And I have loved so much getting to have these conversations with Abraham in this way and expand my own internal becoming and what flows through me. And yeah, I would say the biggest thing that they've nurtured within me is the okayness to like be big and to be shiny and to not hold back. In
Mm.
the environment that I grew up in, there was just like a large mixed variety, and success wasn't really celebrated, and mostly I felt magic, and then my magic felt confusing in the outside world around me, so I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna keep it within myself and not really care how it interacts with the world, just sort of more internal creating." And really in, my evolution with Abraham, it's been like a giant soothing and calling and comfort to really come into my life larger and
Mhm.
therefore come into the world in a larger way.
I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about my friend Amanda Town, who has studied with Liz Hayes one on one and is very familiar with Liz's sync up method. Amanda incorporates the work she has done with Liz into her client sessions. And for the listeners on the show, that means you. Amanda is generously offering 2 free gifts, which I'm super excited to tell you about. The first gift is a free month into her group coaching program, Life Mastery. Simply go to her website, amandatown.com, that's town with an E, click on Contact Now, and send her a message. Mention the Delicious Alignment Show and let her know you would like to take her up on the free month of group coaching, which I highly recommend doing. The second gift is her free ebook, How to Tame Your Overthinking Mind, also found on her website, amandatown.com. This is a beautiful book that tells Amanda's journey from overthinking to living a life of freedom and gives you wonderful insights on how you can transform your overthinking mind to a more peaceful and happy one. Amanda is an expert at helping you release resistance and connect with your inner wisdom by energetically guiding you to let go of old patterns that may have been holding you back for years. Coaching with Amanda is truly a transformational experience. I can personally attest to that, and I would definitely take her up on her offers. Amanda's offer and link is also in the show notes. Now back to the interview. I've noticed your presence a lot. Were you always doing work with people in a big way, or is it within the last couple of years that you've skyrocketed? It seems like you've had a big shift in your business, so to speak, and the work you do with people, the inner child. Is that an accurate description, or have you been working all along and we weren't in the same circles? I didn't.
Yeah, so yes. So when I gave birth to my fourth child, Sylvia, and I was apprenticing with an energy intuitive, I really feel like that birthed me into being a wizard, is kind of how I describe it. Like my psychic abilities and my understanding and everything just expanded in a way like I can't even really articulate. Up until that time, I had significantly been guiding people. Like if I met you, I could tell, "Oh, you might like this energy intuitive. You would like this cranial sacral person. Like, oh, you might want to go see this homeopath." Like I was guiding in that kind of way. Like hundreds of people, just like me showing up at a school event and just through like casual conversation, it would just be like do 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 do, right? So there was that going on. Then I bursted into being a wizard, and I show up at the bus stop in my pajamas, and I was like, "Oh my god, guys, I can do all of that work that I've been studying because I learn in a really unique way. I make my own experiments and I didn't sign up for any program to become any sort of thing. I just learn in my own way. And so all my friends are like, we have known this. We've been waiting for this. And so they all became my clients like at the bus stop that day. So I it's, like, so cute. I was like, "Oh my god, I went to the bus stop and, like, made $1,000 at the bus stop." Like, it was so fun. But I only stayed in that work for about 10 months, and then I had this crazy calling that I was to speak to more people. So that's really where this I call it, like, I was looking for a relatable language, and then I also it coincided with that death, so it, like, brought me to Abraham, and then no, I was not taking any private clients or doing any kind of work at all. I have a ravenous obsession with my own discovery, and then I had like a ravenous obsession with my family. So it's like I genuinely feel like a scientist. Like a researcher, a scientist, and so I would just always have, like, my own experiments going on, like, "What happens if we do this, or we do this," or, like, da 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 da. So I had this craziness going on, and then what happened to me, my youngest baby went to school, and I was sitting on the beach in Puerto Rico, and I had so much energy, like, flowing through my body in a massive way, and at that time, I had felt very masterful with my skills, which didn't mean that life didn't keep evolving, but I was so cool with any way that life evolved that I knew I could navigate it. Like master in that way, like I am so sure of my ability to navigate anything that comes before me into the future. And I also felt retired. Not that we had all of the money that we ever need, like stacked up in the bank, but my questions about that, I was just like, this is in motion. And so it's like I was in my 30s, like later 30s, I was like, I'm 37. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like my motherhood is on auto flow, like that, like these things are on like an auto flow. And literally a download came and was like, it's your time to share. And my first response was, fuck you. I'm not going back out there. It was like me remembering myself as a kid. And I was like, what are you talking about? I let go of all of those people long ago. I've created my life for me. I don't care if you're aware of the life that I have or not. I was very private at that time, like a cocoon, and living my dream life and not caring about what anyone thought or said. So my first thing was arguing no. And then the divine soothed me a bit and was like, what if you do this? What if you do that? Da 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 da. And then all of this downloaded like, you're going to take people around the world. You're going to nurture people in multi-generational facet, like all of these things. And it was you join Instagram. And I'm like, what? I am zero tech. I have zero technical abilities. I have zero interest. I was not even an Instagram observer, zero skill as far as that goes. And I was like, okay. And then I was kind of given this other family, someone in a week, you know how it goes when you hear something over and over again. I kept hearing, like, you're such a bucket list family. You're such a bucket list family. Well, there is a family on Instagram that calls themselves the bucket list family. And so I watched their YouTube videos and I was like, whoa, I'm here in my living room watching their YouTube videos and I'm having expansion by watching them travel the world. And I was like, wow, there's a value in sharing. Because in even 12 step, keep the focus on yourself. Even in Abraham, like you don't need to be doing that. You don't need to save anyone. You don't need to help anyone. Like all of these things. And I had taken it to an extreme. I had really taken it to an extreme
Uh-huh.
of like, I don't need to be doing any of that. And then
Right.
as I sat there and was having this energetic, thrilling experience by watching this family travel to Africa or travel to the Arctic or whatever, I was like, whoa, look at the value of them sharing.
Mhm.
And it
Mm.
really blew up my belief system
Mhm.
about sharing, and it made me so wildly comfortable because, of course, what happens is that I join Instagram, and the first people that come are like your weird uncle, the distant cousin. It's like whatever,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
weird. And I'm uncomfortable, and they're watching me, and I'm like, I'm here to share my internal connection, like this intimate part of me. So, anyways, that ends up neutralizing itself. And then really it came in phases. So then when I was asking my internal team, like, okay, there's so much I could share about. And I'm a very simple person. I like to initiate action in very simple ways. So the internal thing said to me, if you were to share with the world one thing, what is the one thing that you would share? And I was like, oh my God, right away. I knew it was my understanding of the inner child, which is not classic psychological understanding of the inner child. The inner child to me is the part of
Mhm.
us that is alive, that intended to be alive, that is alive, that holds the dreams and the desires and preference and experiences the entire range of emotions. It is like the human part of us that is interacting with the world. It is the part of us that has that gorgeous sensing system. It is really that part of us. And it was like, okay, if I am to share one thing, it is to enliven and bring the inner children back to their lives. Because what happens so often is that you're born this aspect, and then as you interact with the world, we get confused. And this part of us sometimes goes hiding, or sometimes is a giant tantrum, and your whole life is just a tantrum because the inner child is just so dominant in the life. Or there's all different types of ways that this could be playing out. And so my largest thrill and excitement is the inner child being included in their life.
Mm.
So that was really where it started, and I began just sharing on the internet. So it was a little tricky because I had had that major download, and in that major download, it was large success. And it's really tricky when you're going from invisible to visible, for example, or you're going from this deep receiving mode, but then you kind of wake up and you're just like at zero. And so I was like, oh, how do I shift realities? How do I come out of nowhere? How does that just sort of happen? Because I was aware of the expertise of myself, I was aware of the relevance of the message that I had. And then I came across a friend and she was like, nobody goes from 0 to 10. And she was like, this is going to pop your ego like crazy. Nobody gets to go from 0 to 10. Everyone goes 0 to 1. And I was like, okay, I might as well just get started. And so how it started was like in my Instagram stories, I just would put up, I just started talking about the inner child, and I just put up a question box like, dear inner child. And so my Instagram exploded, but it exploded in a really authentic way for me, but I did not do any of the Instagram things right.
Mhm.
So if you go and you're trying to learn how to grow an Instagram account, dominantly you are wanting to play with the algorithm, which would be you creating content that's shareable. I was sharing on my Instagram stories where it only lasted for a day and it would all disappear, and you cannot share it. If you want to share it, it takes effort. Like you would need to screenshot, you would need to tag, you would need to like do all of these things to share. And I grew by genuine, authentic word of mouth sharing in this type of way.
I love this. Mind blowing. I am in that world where I take a course to learn about how to grow your podcast, etc. This course, Instagram, every day, at least an hour. First 10 minutes, share on other people's stuff. Then you do this. Then you do that. And I was doing it. And it felt so yucky. But this is what the expert told me. I mean, she's got one of the biggest female podcasts. How does it feel? How does it feel? Yeah.
How does it feel? So my inner child is horrible at following rules and horrible at following guidelines and like was a horrible student in the traditional way. Yet I'm brilliant and like a brilliant student. And so for things authentically to come through me, it is through my genuine curiosity and pleasure. And so I just started doing Dear Inner Child. It was like a non-thought thing. I was like, let's just happen. I have all this energy moving through me. I'm desiring to flow. Let's see what happens. And so, like, I could literally start to cry over what ended up happening. So, thank you for the space, like, allowing me to reflect and share. And so, a friend says, no one goes from 0 to 10. And so I was just sort of like, fuck it. I'm going to be comfortable being at 0 and going to 1, and everyone could watch me go to 1, and it was cringy, and there were, like, some of my friends, my son's friends' parents that are like, "What is your mom doing on the internet?" Like, "Oh my god, it's so weird, like, your mom's on the internet." Like, there was, like, weird stuff, like, I'm not gonna say that here's magical airy-fairy Liz, she randomly gets the idea to do this, and it results into this, like, big thing, like, I'm needing to navigate. Remember, my confidence is not that my life is going to be perfect. My confidence is in my ability to navigate. And so I'm like, this is cringe. 0 to 1 is cringe. There is nothing more cringe than going 0 to 1 because you don't know what the you're doing. It's cringe. It's just
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
cringe.
Yes.
So I do the cringe. I go 0 to 1, it starts to have traction. I'm a genuine person, so, like, over the time that I had been on there, I did cultivate relationships with beautiful people, and so people that have larger audiences, and so it was so generous and gorgeous and kind that they authentically shared me. And so a lot of their people came over and all of these things. So I share on Instagram, that was, like, about a year, and then,
With
of
no
course,
strategy, by the way, just following your
yes,
guidance.
no
No,
strat
like,
actually, like, the opposite of any of the strategies. Even some people were like, "Liz, you could go viral if you read," because I would just type with my thumbs because I don't know technology. So, like, people go on Facebook, Facebook makes me vomit, I do not understand it. Instagram is super simple to me, I just type with my thumbs, post, super easy, I never even read what I'm posting, nothing's edited in, it's, like, raw. And they're like, Liz, take what you wrote and just read it and put it in a reel so people can share it. I still have never done that. I just have never done it. I never done it. They're like, you would go viral. And I'm like, I don't know. I never did it. And so, anyways, so then the next thing that started to come from me um, was, hey, you should do an inner child workshop. And I was like, oh, I don't really know, like, whatever. I had a little bit of arguing internally. That's a bit of a theme for me. My inner child, like, argues a little bit. And then I eventually end up doing it. So I did a workshop. Also, I just want to, like, clarify. So, like, I have that download of all these big things, which is like millions of dollars and this or that. And then my guidance is do an inner child workshop for $300. And I'm like, how is this thing going to equal that thing?
mm-hmm,
Right? Like, I
mm-hmm.
was shown this big thing. How is this thing going to equal that thing? And I was like, whatever. No one goes from 0 to 10. I'm going to go 0 to 1 and do the one workshop. And so it sells out in like I posted, I went to bed, I woke up the next morning, it was sold out, so that was beautiful. That was beautiful and simple, and so I got the life experience from that, and then it just, like, started showing me the life experience, and so it was like, "Liz, if you were to take one-on-one clients," and remember, like, a decade ago, I had one-on-one clients, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing that, I'm doing one-to-many." Anyways, it was like, if you were to take one-on-one clients, like, what would it be? Minimally, I would want to nurture someone for a season. I would be so curious to see the evolution of 12 weeks. And so everything that's come to me has been based off of my curiosity. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to do this to this. This is the price point and like whatever. And so almost instantly after I have this internal communication, the people start showing up. And it was like, oh, okay, I have 3 people in the one to one. And it was like, oh, what does it feel like to have 5 people in? And then I was like, oh, I wonder what it would feel like to have 10 people in. And so I really stopped at 10. And then what happened from that was that the people that came to me, I have a lot of variety in my life. And so like the people would come in these specific pockets, some people from Abraham, some people from this way, some people from this. So it was like a diverse group, and they all started saying, you have an exquisite method, I want you to teach it to me. Like, I've
Mm-hmm.
never had transformation like this. Like, I don't know what you are doing, you have to teach me, because it was already people who were coaches, some coaches already. And again, I was like, I don't know how I would teach this. Like, this is literally like, I'm a scientist. I've been integrating from the time I've been born. This is now like 40 years of work. I don't even know what I would do. And so I just sat, and my guidance was, okay, I'll teach you. And then it was like, okay, it's this price, it's this amount of time, and let's just do it. And so I just announced it maybe 3 times or something, and it just filled. So I had 15 people in the program, and,
This is recently, like last year,
we
or?
yeah, last year. Yeah, last year. So we had 15 people in the program, and then when people were in, it was like, "Oh, you're not really a guide. You'll go to one-on-one. You'll go," like, there were 3 people that ended up being something else, and so we ended with 12. And it was just, there's no words. The thing that I would say to anybody who has crazy summoning and calling within them and already a good life or whatever, the fulfillment of the last like 18, like the last, from when I was on the beach and I actually said yes, to where I am now, the fulfillment is like indescribable. It's indescribable. Like, I already was happy and fulfilled, and the next level of fulfillment, I didn't even know was
Mm-hmm.
possible. My
Mm-hmm.
recent hot seat to Abraham, like, I even said that to them, because I had this very specific hot seat in 2021 on the Pacific cruise, and I was actually crying on it because I was like, "Okay, here I am, I'm, like, 40. In my life, I only dreamed of, not only, but I've dominantly dreamed of like motherhood. I have a huge mothering heart, and I'm at the cusp of like, deciding I'm never going to have a baby again. This is it." And I was like, I can't even see life beyond this. I don't even know what's on the horizon. And I was sitting there and I was just, I don't know what's next for me. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't even know. And it was like they used their magic. My heart like exploded, and all of this really came after that hot seat. And it was, we're going to show you how much there is for you. And so by the end of, so last year was really the first year that I've worked since I was like 20, 22.
Mm-hmm. Well, you worked as a mom, yeah.
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 And so I made $1 million.
Last year,
Yeah.
just like by following that little voice.
I was on the beach and it had downloaded to me and it was all these things. And then I'm like, I don't know how this random workshop is going to equal that. And what happened by the end of the year was that I had made $1 million.
I just love this story. You are such an example of how this all works.
So that all happened. The guides graduated like the end of January. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to stay with them for a year, because I love integration. I love nurturing this, and I love everybody getting what they want. And so I'm like, let me let me see how this goes between the inner child and the inner being and integrating and this and da 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 da. So I have been working still. Like my private practice is still beautiful and full. And I have a mothership membership where I teach like the foundations of my work. That's really gorgeous. Where I am now has been wild. It's been this slow integrating and prepping for the next wave. I'm not arguing with my internal guidance, but it's like, so I didn't finish this in my story, but what had happened in my Abraham evolution was that I had put what I had known to the side and paid attention to Abraham. And then at one point, this came back and it all integrated and downloaded in. So remember I said like the birth of Sylvia, I became a wizard. This was kind of like phase 2. And then what has just been happening to me right now has kind of been like the phase 3 where I had made an agreement with my divine team. I was like, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to give you 12 months. And anything you tell me to do, I'm going to do. And I'm not going to argue. And I'm not going to care about the outside world. I'm going to be confident that up until now, I've stabilized that enough. I know that you're going to guide me and it's going to create crazy waves all over the place. It's going to create crazy waves because up until then, I've been a researcher, but I've been dominantly focused on my family, dominant support to my husband, dominant co creative partner in all of these ways. And I was like, okay, what's the minimum I need to do in these areas that matter to me to say yes? Because I'm kind of like an obsessive, all in kind of person, to say yes and let this come out without me having any measurements of like, I'm not going to the gym, or I didn't cook dinner, or like the laundry's a little messier than I like let it get crazy. I let it just sort of like get crazy. Like it had its own stability, but I let it get a little messy at in order for me to say yes and to let all of this in. And then this where I am now is like, oh, my home life came back, my marriage came back, my this came back, and my business. And it's all kind of like swirling into the next generation of me.
Okay, I have so many questions, and we we don't have enough
Because
time.
it's wild. It really was. It was like I put this to the side. I let all this in, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna slow down. Is everyone still here? Are you all
Yeah.
still here? Like, is everyone okay? Like, does anyone brush their teeth? Like, what are you doing? Who are you? What is going on?" And yeah, all is well.
What's sticking out to me is you got that message, a voice, join Instagram. And I get these messages all the time. It was like, write the book. And I'm like, no, I don't want to write that book. I'm the last person in the world to write that book. And it's like, write the book. You know, for 2 years, write the book. Okay, I'll write the book. And then start a podcast. No, no, yeah. So I do the arguing with my inner being as well. But just to see how I talk about this so much, how to go from that model of all that strategy to no strategies, listening and being in touch. Don't you love free gifts? I know I do. I want to gift you my guided visualization on abundance, which you can find at deliciousalignment.com/abundance, as well as my Love Your Body, Love Your Life online course, free for a limited time, which includes over 20 short videos based on the 5 steps outlined in part 1 of my book, Delicious Alignment: How 25 Women Learn to Love and Transform Their Bodies Using Abraham Hicks and the Law of Attraction. You can get access to this course by going to deliciousalignment.com/free course. And last but not least, make sure to join my Facebook group, Delicious Alignment. Look for all these links down below. Now back to the interview. I want to ask you a few questions, follow-up
Yeah.
questions. What do you mean by wizard? Like I'm a wizard when you say that. What does that mean to you?
How do I even describe this? I think it feels wildly in touch with the divine. It feels wildly like okay within myself, open, okay. And because of that, there's an openness for synchronicity. There's an openness for magic. Examples are examples that we all experience all the time, like you're in traffic and then all of a sudden the traffic disappears. Or you have an injury and it's not like the injury miraculously heals, but it's like I have an injury and this beautiful person turns up and then this person and then this person and this person and it's like all is well even though you have this thing going on. It's a dominant feeling of okayness and openness and just like very, very in touch with solutions and the ability to let everything be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And just even my kids just like even know it. Like my youngest like had a friend over who had a bellyache and he's like, "Oh, just go stand next to my mom." And it's like, just like, "Go stand near to my mom." Like, I don't know how it happens, but you're
Oh,
gonna be fine.
so is that what's happening? Like so many times I can't tell you where there's something wrong or with my computer or I can't figure out how to do something. I'm not a techie either, really. I'll say, my husband's name is Steve, also, by the way.
Love.
So I'll say, Steve, can you help me? And he'll walk in and he doesn't do anything. He just walks into the room and the problem is fixed.
Oh, it's well.
I can't
Yeah.
tell you. And I never thought of it that way, it's his,
It's just like a vibe.
it's a
It's
vibe. It's,
just a
yeah.
vibe. It's a vibe, and it's like it just feels like a portal to any solution. Like, just like
I love that.
whatever that is, and we all have, like, our moments about it. It's just about picking that state more dominantly, and I don't necessarily see colors or whatever, but my hands are very sensitive to vibration, where I could hold a frequency and the frequency could change in my hand. That is more we all have our difference in skills. My skill is gigantically a sensing skill.
Somebody mentioned to me, oh, having, it was Amanda Town, who's been on my show twice and
Yes,
who's worked with you. So
yes,
she said, your hands are all over, when you're working with somebody. And I'm like, what, as you know, I'm uh, endorsed Mallison method practitioner. And I find when I'm working with people and my hands are starting, they're just moving, it feels like I'm moving energy. And I often think, yeah, like I really, like, I don't know, I'm doing when Amanda told me that Liz is doing. Like it's just happening naturally. Is that what's
yes,
happening?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Moving
yes,
energy.
yes, yes. And you could even watch Esther. You'll
Hmm.
watch her more closely. She has her things like this.
Okay, so you mentioned your method that people were saying, oh, can you teach this method? So what method is that? Your sync up method? Like what method are we
Yes.
talking about?
Yeah, yes. So we just called it the think up method because that's really what happens between the inner child and the inner being. There's like a slurp up that happens. And when you're in this state, for people that are like loving Abraham or whatever, like it's really you're in harmony, you're in your vortex, you're in the center of you. So, yeah, so we said a little bit about what the inner child is. It is the part of you that feels everything. So if anyone is wanting to find their inner child. It's just noticing what you are feeling right now. It's noticing what the feeling is. And then the voice that nurtures the inner child is really the inner being. And so, right now, I'll give the example of me where it would be like, Dear inner child, I see you. I'm aware of you. You are so happy. You are loving this conversation. You are loving this moment. You're so grateful you said yes to this. You're having many epiphanies and awarenesses to your own discovery that you hadn't quite seen before. I see you. I'm aware of you. And I'm so proud of you. And I love you. And I'm happy that you're happy.
So
So,
you think these
yeah.
thoughts, or you write it down, or you say it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
however it flows through you. I am personally a large writer. I like to text on my phone, but even just now I just spoke these words, and also you could just think them internally. And there's many layers to the awakening of the inner child because so often there is not really space for the inner child to be heard. And we all love the Abraham method, but even sometimes the inner child who is feeling uncomfortable, maybe be deemed as like, you're in negative emotion. We shouldn't hear that part of you. And really, in my method, I feel wildly different than that. I feel wildly okay to hear my inner child in any state that she's in. The state of being afraid, the state of being worried, the state of sensing a problem or being apprehensive or questioning her safety or whatever this is. And so, um, really, when you look at my outcomes and it's like, how did you navigate everything or whatever, it's because I already had this insane ability to navigate life. And so, just like with my ability to navigate life, that's why all these things are down loading to me or guiding in this way is really because of this meticulous internal communication. So, anyways, this method that I'm teaching or talking about right now, this is very much in my mothership membership. This is what I teach in the mothership membership. I teach the awakening of the inner child. I teach the inclusion of the inner child. I teach the awakening of the voice of the inner being, the inclusion of the inner being. Then the navigating of the internal communication. And so I never tell my inner child no. And everything is welcomed, and this internal dialogue and this complete comfort, and really that it's the container of you. This is your container, and only in this container of you is you and you. And so, in the you and you, this is the only unconditional aspect of your entire existence. Everything outside of this container is conditional. And what conditional means is that everything around you is in the motion, is in movement and motion between comfort and discomfort, between their own liking and disliking. And that creates conditionality. Nobody is often nobody is always steady in their sync up, in their alignment. We're all in the movement of life. And so that makes everything around you conditional. But the only unconditional aspect is here in the container of you, where the inner being can fully hear you, where you can fully be honest, fully be honest. And as we're honest, we're not gripped to some of the things that feel hard. We are releasing the things that be hard. We are giving it over. We're in a communication and in a conversation. And so it doesn't create more of that. It's not a negative attracting. It is the most beautiful, gorgeous, sacred, intimate
Mm.
space ever that there is, where the whole of you is completely loved and accepted and understood.
That was that
And
was that was
yeah.
such a beautiful rampage of explaining that, and I feel so soothed.
Yes, yes, yes. Soothing and solving. So that is the foundation of my work. And then I train people to guide my method. So there are many layers to that, being able to guide an inner child and hold space in that type of way and co-creation and all of that. There's like bazillion things that happen in the Sync Up Method training program, and it's wildly authentic. Everything from me is all about the unique way of working with the way that you work. And so I have a method that awakens you more to you, and elements of that will integrate in you an individual experience. So there.
I've heard so many amazing things about it. I want to ask you to share how people can find you. What you already gave us some information, but I want you to
Yeah,
repeat it.
Instagram.
Instagram. But before we do that, I did say that I was gonna come back to you using alignment. Like
Yes. Okay.
it,
So,
yes.
so there's like the process of getting aligned, which is maybe you would describe it as you having a dominant awareness of your inner being. That gorgeous feeling, a little bit of what we just did was slurping into the alignment. So now that we're in alignment, how do we want to leverage it and use our alignment? So it really has to do with the internal conversation. So it would be like, what is mattering to you now? What are you wanting? And so I could use myself as an example of kind of like skimming the rest of my day. I have a client after this call, and then I'm going to get my daughter from school. And then I will have this chunk of time in the evening, and I'm wanting it to feel inspiring and magical, and like my socks are being blown off, and there's some interesting house projects that I have going on. And so I'll just start to feed all of this over to my inner being, giving my inner being all of the awareness that I have, and then kind of releasing it and letting my day show itself to me. So there's the ability to get into alignment, and then it's really like going out to live your life. And as you're living your life, you're going to bump into comforts and discomforts. And so really I love to soothe and nurture the process of like walking your life, like using your alignment in this. I have a hot seat about this as well. And so often, or maybe at one point, I had thought alignment meant syncing up to your inner being. And what I expressed to Abraham was that my now understanding is my alignment between being okay and not. The movement between the perspective of the inner child and the inner being, perspective of the inner child and the inner being, the perspective of the inner child and the inner being, and the motion like that, and that center space of me and my awareness. That is really what alignment means to me now. So often we
Interesting.
all
Yes.
try pulling back into being like wider perspective. And what really I've just like seen with a lot of people is that, like, oh, that's cool. You could get into wider perspective, but now what? Like, the purpose of life is not to get into wider perspective. It's like, what do you do now that you know how to get into wider perspective? So
Yeah.
it's really like unleashing that all. That's really my expertise, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Navigating both in alignment, discomfort, comfort. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong here. It's
There.
all good. Let's talk about how people can find you and what you have going on, your
Yeah, the best
website,
way.
your Instagram handle, all of the good
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, the best way to find me is Love Liz Hayes. I'm very active on Instagram. I'm very active in my DMs. And so, actually, I would not encourage you to contact me in any other way because I likely won't even see it. My assistant would see it. I'm horrible technically. So, if you want to actually message me after you listen to this, it would be going to Love Liz Hayes on Instagram.
Good
And
to
my
know.
programs kind
Yeah.
of ebb and flow with them being open. Currently, you can buy nothing from me, but
Okay.
someday you will be able to buy something. So, yeah, that's just kind of the vibe.
If you want to share anything that
Hmm.
would be useful right now in someone's life listening to this, what message would you like to share about inner child?
Yeah, I'll just kind of like go into a little flow to end our time here together. And so I'll open the way that I open in my work, welcoming the inner child, welcoming the inner being, welcoming everything that matters to you, to all of the inner children listening here and now. You are included in your life, you are welcomed in your life, you are curious and interesting to the inner being. You are desired. You are desirable. You are good. There is nothing you can do to prove the goodness of you, for you were born good. You were born good. You are good. And in all of your navigating, you remain good. When we are questioning the goodness of us or questioning the rightness or wrongness of us, that is what puts us below the line on the emotional scale into negative emotion. All negative emotion stems from our questioning of the goodness of who we are. As you soothe and sense your knowingness of you being good, that puts you at this state of contentment and then puts you in a space of co creation and all of those juicy emotions that flow above the goodness of you. It is okay to feel your life. It is okay to be honest. It's okay that you have things that you like and things that you don't like. And it's okay to leave the things that you don't like on the things that you don't like. You don't need to try to force disliking over into liking. You could just let it all be easy. You are alive and you are human and you have things that you like and you have things that you don't like. And that is all okay. You are not bad because of your disliking. You are good, even in your liking, even in your disliking. Taking a moment here to allow the inner child to turn towards the inner being, letting the inner child see the inner being and letting the inner being see the inner child, letting the inner child sense the inner being and letting the inner being sense the inner child. If you don't have a visual of what the inner being looks like, you can just imagine golden light. Again, letting this golden light look at you, the inner child, and letting the inner child look at this golden light. Letting this golden light sense you and letting the inner child sense the golden light. The inner child is safe with the inner being, and the inner being is safe with the inner child. The inner child is learning their confidence with the inner being, and the inner being is learning their confidence with the inner child. It's okay to be in a discovery. It's okay to not know everything. One of the main ways to master the unfolding of your alignment is one step knowing, one step not knowing. And what that kind of looks like is that the inner being sends the inner child an idea. The inner child catches the idea, but the inner child doesn't take the idea and just run away. The inner child stays here in the conversation with the inner being. They take the idea the inner being gave and they let some questions come up about this idea, and then they give the idea back to the inner being. And then the inner being takes the idea and kind of upgrades the idea based off of the feedback of the inner child. And the inner child gets the idea again. And again, they catch the idea. They let them sort of poke it, love it, nurture it, give feedback about it, and then again releases it back to the inner being. So often in our life, particularly for all of us that love deliberate creating and manifesting, is that we sort of bask around waiting for the idea, then we get the idea, and then we catch the idea and we become a bit self righteous and we run with the idea as far as we can. Not including the interviewing. We're like, we got it. We know what to do. We're going to apply all of the strategies that we took from all of the courses and we're going to do it. And then, not until we bump into a problem do we then include the inner being again. And it's all okay because you end up including the inner being again. But really, this delicious dance of learning how to use your alignment is learning how to include the conversation back and forth between the inner child and the inner being, including the inner being throughout all of the process. It's really quite fun and delicious. And we notice that we're using this word delicious a lot because of beautiful Rhonda and her delicious alignment. But for now, we will leave you with all of this. There's a lot here in this gorgeous podcast, in this call, even in this ending moment. To the inner child, you are seen, you are heard, you are understood, and you are doing it right. And it is okay when you don't know. You can release your body completely of knowing and confidently stand there not knowing. I don't know. And I know that I'll know when I know, but right now I don't know. It's the best stance, best place to be in, most magical state to be in, releasing the mind, releasing the brain, releasing the thoughts, not knowing at all, and following our soft guidance that tends to whisper through the heart or through the belly, and the ease of the curiosity and following the curiosity for the pleasure of following the curiosity. If I were to say one more thing, is that I never took the measurement that whole last year and continue on the outside. I took the measurement internally, and my internal measurement that I took was that I went all in. In that moment, I heard what I heard, I did what I did, and nobody could ever tell me that I didn't hear enough or do enough or whatever. I went all in internally. And I took my measurement there, and I had committed at the end of the 12 months that I will know that I undoubtedly followed the path to the best of my ability. And for that, I will feel proud. I have no idea what is coming beyond that. And of course, I love the results that came beyond that. And of course, at the end of the 12 months, I have crazy hindsight as to what I could have done. But in that moment, I did everything that I knew to do. And each day or a couple of times a day, I would just measure in that place, knowing that I checked in that way. And I let that fill me up and be completely enough. And I let myself nurture myself in this way that I just sort of described. And I just let that be enough. And it was more than enough. And then obviously I had gorgeous results and continue to have gorgeous results. But the pleasure, the authentic, genuine pleasure, has completely been in the discovery, which I know sounds so cliche, but that is my authentic unfolding. If someone in the beginning of the year told me to do this and do this and do this and do this, like there's no way I just would have even believed you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Beautiful place to end here. Thank you so much for that gift. In the end, the whole thing was a gift, but that beautiful surprise at the end.
Loved it so much. I love you, Rhonda. Thank you for including me. Thank you to everyone listening. Okay, love you. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Liz Hayes. If it resonates with you, you might want to check out my recent episodes with Mandy Mills, Reed Thompson, Gina Mallison, and Amanda Town, who all have worked with Liz one-on-one and are familiar with her sync-up method. You will find Liz on Instagram at @LoveLizHayes. In fact, the best way to contact her is by DMing her there. Her website is meetmsmagic.com. All these links, including the past episodes mentioned, are in the show notes below. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and share this episode and this podcast on social media. I really appreciate it when you do. See you in 2024, unless I pop up on here sooner. Have a delicious holiday season.